Hello, BookTube. Many months ago, Matthew at Mayberry Book Club was looking at the books in his tiny house and thought, has Steve read all of these books? He had a brand new book channel at the time and we didn't know each other. And he decided to make a video where he simply asked that question. Has Steve read all of these books? He came out with a handful of books and simply asked, I'm wondering about these. There are a lot of them that I'm looking at where I'm 100% sure he's read them, but these, I'm not so sure. And unexpectedly to him, and certainly to me, it took off. A lot of people wanted in on that fun. So there was a whole season of Has Steve Read It videos where we carefully estimated who was ahead, who was behind, who had the highest number of wins. And then that season ran its course and finished. And recently, Daniel at Guilty Feet had the inspired idea to start a season 2 of Has Steve Read It. And he did his inaugural video, and of course Matthew jumped in. And I thought in the back of my head, I thought, okay, a few people will do this because this is a lot of fun. And I was wrong. Season 2 has caught on just like season 1 did. The videos are popping up faster than I can do response videos to them, and I intend to do response videos to them, although a couple of people made that pretty hard. I already have trouble with brevity. If you want me to do a response video book by book to 30 or 40 books, it's not going to be possible. The informal rules here that we've been propagating from the beginning, and also last time that we did this in season 1. Rule number 1 would be 8 books. Pick 8 books. Rule number 2 would be, it should be something that you have either read or have in your library. You shouldn't just be going to Goodreads to find the most obscure books in the world. And 3 being, you know, it shouldn't be an a-hole pick. It shouldn't be something that you're 100% certain that I haven't read and that you just want to you know, I don't know, a niche pick. You don't want a personal niche pick, because we all have those, myself included, hundreds and hundreds of them that we can be sure the other person hasn't read. And there've been a whole bunch of those videos, so I'm just going to go through them one at a time. And in that progression, just you know, according to what I've seen and what I think I have the time to respond to, we are now up to Book Time with Elvis. A wonderful BookTube channel. I will leave a link to all of the participants so far. And we are going to go through the 8 books that Book Time with Elvis puts forward. And we're going to see what his score is compared to the 2 previous entries in season 2. Guilty Feet and Mayberry Book Club both got 2 beans. So picture the graphic of 2 miniature schnauzer heads. They both got 2 beans out of 8. So can Book Time with Elvis do any better? Let's take a look and see, shall we? The first book, the first book on the list, invites us to create a new category for responses in these videos. We have mentioned, I start out by saying, the one thing you don't want on the list is something that kills the fun. Something where you are absolutely sure that I have not read the book. Then what's the point? You know, A, it's a little bit of a jerk move, and B, it's obvious that I can reciprocate, right? So that takes it out of the realm of fun. So that's a category that we want to talk about. But there's another category that's come up on a few videos, and it also came up in season 1, which is kind of a facepalm category, where I cannot believe that the person making the list would think for even a minute that I hadn't read the book in question. And Mark at Book Time with Elvis has a couple of facepalm moments, but it's occurring to me that maybe we should come up with yet another category of book, and that is not just a facepalm moment. Have you seen the GIF from one of the Naked Gun movies where first a couple of people do a facepalm, and then a whole bunch of people do a facepalm, and then a whole audience in a studio all does a facepalm at the same time? I'm sure you've seen that GIF. Maybe we should have one of those. Maybe we should have a category like that, where not only is the choice a facepalm, but a multiple facepalm. I wish I could put the GIF right here. Because the first book that Book Time with Elvis chooses here is a book that not only is it a facepalm in that how on earth can you think that I wouldn't have read this, but it's also a multiple facepalm because it's an author I have reviewed. It's Gary Corby, who wrote a series of books set in ancient Greece. The one that Mark mentions here is the Pericles Commission. And it's a yes. I have reviewed this author. I have interviewed this author. I have read this author's series of books set in ancient Greece. They're murder mysteries set in ancient Greece, and they're pretty good. There aren't as many murder mysteries set in ancient Greece as there once were, so I recommend the series, but it's a multiple facepalm. So let's just move on. The next one is Portuguese Irregular Verbs by Alexander McCall Smith. This is a yes. It's by far the most clever and interesting thing that this, I consider this to be a fairly lightweight and derivative author, even though he's beloved. I'm not 100% sure that in conversation with me, he wouldn't agree that he was lightweight and derivative, but one way or another, I think that this is probably the most interesting thing that he's ever done. And I liked it. It was still light, and it was still derivative, but it was more enjoyable, I thought. A lot less lazy pandering than, for instance, his long-running series of murder mysteries. Then the next one is 69 by Ryu Murakami. Or am I supposed to say Murakami Ryu? I don't know one way or another. But I've been on record on this channel a few times liking this author. There are, of course, the two famous Murakamis. The one, Haruki Murakami, I do not know what to make of. For every book he writes that I think might be teetering on the edge of genius, there are two books that look like they were written by someone under heavy sedation, and they don't have any genius in them. For every book that looks like it's teetering on the edge of genius, there will be sections in that book that do not, that are boring or bad or both. And Haruki Murakami, I have no idea. I don't know. I have a feeling, a strong feeling that he is a major literary figure. But if you ask me to demonstrate why I think that, I'm not sure that I could. He is an example of an extremely popular, often bruited for the Nobel Prize figure, whose notoriety and popularity and the intellectual little whirlpools that he creates, where he's one of those figures where I think it actually is merited that people struggle with him, that they grapple with his work. Ryu Murakami, I think, is just across the board more talented, although his books aren't as challenging. And I don't know if that's just an illusion. Maybe Haruki Murakami's books just seem challenging because they are partially inept. I don't know one way or another, but I've read everything by Ryu Murakami, including 69. So that's a yes. Then this next one is not the multiple facepalm, but at least a very strong traditional facepalm, just a single facepalm, being a choice where I simply cannot believe that the person making this video thinks I haven't read the book. And that is I Serve the King of England by Bohumil Hrabal. Hrabal is a great author. He's never written anything that wasn't great. And I Serve the King of England, good Lord, I've been recommending this book since before Book Time with Elvis or Elvis were born. It's great. Everything by this author is great to one degree or another. I Serve the King of England, I think I'd probably be in the majority in saying that it is his masterwork. And it's reprinted everywhere. It's had 1 million editions. It's taught in schools. Of course I've read I Serve the King of England. And the same thing is true. We have a rare instance here of back-to-back facepalms. Because the same thing is true of the next one, not to the same degree, but the Encyclopedia of the Dead by Danilo Kish is also a revered book. I think also widely considered to be this author's masterpiece. Also many, many editions. I've recommended this and Hrabal to many, many readers over the course of many, many years. So yes, it's a yes to both of them. Yes, I have read these books. It's confusing. Maybe not so much Encyclopedia of the Dead, but asking me if I've ever read I Serve the King of England seems like asking me if I've ever read Kafka. One way or another. Those are both yeses. The next one, I admit, might have gotten Mark's hopes up because on the surface it looks like something that just might not have come my way. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for me, it did come my way and I loved it. It's The File by Timothy Garton Ash that boils down. It's got a lot of atmosphere to it. It is an amazing snapshot of a dysfunctional era. But the heart of the story is, what would you do, you being just in general here, if you could read your file? And let's for the minute not say it's a Stasi file. Let's just say we all know that we have a file somewhere. Once upon a time in America, it was an FBI file. It was J. Edgar Hoover keeping. Does he have a file on you, and what's in it? And the sort of the urban legend dream of the 1960s and early 1970s was, what would happen if you could read your file? And of course the Nazis kept files, and the Stasi kept files like crazy. And the idea has all, and now it's social media. Now there's the most extensive and detailed file ever kept on anyone is kept on all of us. And there's no need for informants. We are our own informants. We give all the possible incriminating personal information in the world to social media apps that hoover up information, and they don't get, it doesn't get lost in the jumble. It isn't, well, I'm just one small minnow in a gigantic pond, so no one will notice. No. Somewhere in the bowels of Cupertino, someone has looked at your personal photos, including your personal video footage that you weren't taking. If you don't have tape over the camera of your laptop, then it is looking at you all the time. And I guarantee you, no matter how small a minnow in the pond you are, if you have been watching, let's say, unseemly material on YouTube late at night, no other lights running except the light of your screen lighting your face, and let's say you are appreciative, someone watched that. You didn't even film it. You don't need to. As if you don't cover the cameras on your devices, they're looking at you all the time. And someone is looking at that. So the ultimate Stasi file is out there on all of us all the time. And that is mind-boggling to think about. But in this book, the author actually does eventually get to read his file, his Stasi file, and find out from that file not only what the Stasi knew, but who they knew it from. Who were the people who were secretly informing on him when he didn't know about it? And it's riveting, absolutely riveting. And it's a natural choice to be on this list, because I might never have read it. It happened. It's like the who was it? Guilty Feet? Was it? Yeah, it was Guilty Feet who added a book on by a British sports figure. So entirely likely that I hadn't read it, even though it sold 1 million copies, so it isn't a niche pick. I could understand that pick, and it was just happenstance that I happened to have come across The Art of Captaincy. And it's the same thing with the file. It's just happenstance. I would have missed it completely. But unfortunately, I did not miss it completely. I thought it was fascinating. I wholeheartedly second the recommendation of it. But I did read it. So it's a yes. And now we move on. This next one, I don't know that it's a facepalm. I don't know that it is. Unless we come up with yet another category. I don't know how many subcategories we can come up with just for this one response. But if we come up with yet another subcategory, which I guess we could call the academic facepalm, this next book is By Orders of the Great White Queen by Ian Knight. And it's a yes. And the reason why I almost want to navigate it for another facepalm is because it's about the Zulu War and the politics all around it and the main characters involved. And the reason why I almost want to nominate it for a facepalm is because although most people don't read about the Zulu Wars, if you do read the literature, you have to know this author. He is a fundamental author in his field. Not just for this book, but for many others. In my opinion, this book is one of his best. And I don't know how many of you were watching Sean D. Standfast a while ago. Had a motherlode of a haul. I think he did multiple videos where he found a motherlode of Zulu histories, Zulu material, that fed his sweet tooth. But he's not the only one out there that has that sweet tooth. Anyone who's read The Washing of the Spears will be permanently infected with an interest about this crappy war. The Washing of the Spears is great. At least Book Time with Elvis didn't include The Washing of the Spears on his list. I don't know how hard a facepalm that would have been. But in this particular case, once you are infected with an interest in all things Zulu, you are going to read this author. There's no way around it, and I have. So it's a yes. Although I don't have a copy of this book, I don't have a copy of the file, I don't have a copy at the moment. I went and checked. I don't actually have a copy in any format of I Serve the King of England. And I don't have any Ryu Murakami. But nevertheless, it's a yes, and that brings us to the last book on the list here, and that is Happy Odyssey by Sir Adrian Carton de Vart, which I think I saw Mark praise on his channel once before, and I've never read it. He makes it sound absolutely fascinating, and I think it's readily available. So, like is the positive side effect on a lot of these Has Steve Read It videos, you're adding to my TBR, which is great. It sounds fascinating, but I have never read it. No, so it's a no. And if you've been keeping track at home, you realize it's the first no. And that means we have a whole new sabermetrics to line up here. Because, as I've noted, we've only had 2 contestants so far. Mayberry Book Club and Guilty Feet. And both of them scored an abysmal 2 beans. Boop, boop, 2 beans. And so I was forced, frustratedly, to say that there are no winners and there are no losers. We have 2 contestants and they have the same score. But now that all changes. Now we have both 2 winners and a loser. because Book Time with Elvis's tally is 1 bean. There's 1 book on this list that I haven't read. And there are 2 face palms, and there is 1 multiple face palm. I don't know how many of you are going to be able to match that, but at least that's something in the way of a distinction for this video. So we've bottomed out. we're at 1 bean, and the door is still open. The corrida is still running. Which of you will be the next to enter the ring, and will you do better? You could scarcely do worse. But so far, our ceiling is 2 beans. Surely we can do better than that. With 8 choices, not, 20 or 25 or 30 choices. With 8 choices, surely we can do better than 2 beans. You'll be the first to know. We'll rack up another victim next time. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off for now. I'll leave all the pertinent links in the video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.